Hey everybody, it's Jim Bonacci from Alliance RV. In the service department, we do get questions about toilets, how they operate, and sometimes there are some concerns that happen with them. In this particular case, we have a Dometic 310 pedestal toilet that's used in a lot of our floor plans. So this would be applicable across almost everything that we make. One of the main concerns we get with water and toilets is people see moisture on the floor underneath the toilet and they say something's leaking. Obviously, we want to find out what's going on. This is the water valve in the toilet. It's operated by the flush pedal. And when you depress this, it allows fresh water coming in from the camper to leave this valve, go up through here and go into the toilet bowl and allow you to fill it and then flush it. If you're getting water around here, we want to check some very, very simple things. On the feed line to the toilet is going to be blue PEX, and it's going to have a shutoff valve here. We want to make sure that the connection to the backside of the water valve is nice and tight. It's nicely secured, and then you run your fingers underneath it. Is there water there? If there's water there, then you're onto something. Continue looking. If it's dry there, let's continue on. Look at the various crimps and connections between the fittings and the valve that exist above the floor. Make sure that and run your hand around it. Make sure that your hand always comes back dry. We want to see if when you flush this, if water is coming from here. Is there a leak here? You can run your finger underneath it. Nope, no water there. We want to make sure that this crimp is also tight up here. If all of that seems to be tight and you're still getting moisture in this area, it may very well be the water valve itself. One of the situations you may run into is that you've checked everything and nothing's leaking, but you're still getting moisture underneath here. This is a perfect time to check the water valve for cracks. And the most common culprit of this cracking is actually water getting in it and being allowed to freeze, assuming it wasn't winterized properly or got a cold snap or some other reason that this was allowed to freeze. So what we would do is remove this screw, press these two tabs, and pull this entire valve out. It would come out attached to this flexible hose, and to remove it from the hose, you just simply cut this crimp connector that you can't reuse, and then you can hold the valve in your hand. And then you can closely check it out to see if there's any cracks in the housing all the way around it. It may not be obvious until you get up really close to see it. This is a situation that there's no way to repair that. You would absolutely have to replace that water valve. It's very easily done. It's also very readily available all across the internet and locally as well. So you would then simply pop it back in, reattach your hose with a clamp, and reattach your feed line right here to it, making sure it's nice and tight. You should be able to turn your water back on and operate your valve again, and everything should be back up and running. While we're here, we want to discuss the fact that if you're in a situation where you have good water flow and good water pressure throughout your camper, but for some reason you don't have it at your toilet when you're trying to flush it and fill your bowl, why just this? Well, it could possibly be because some debris from campground water sources or mineral deposits have gotten stuck in a screen that's inside here. There's actually a screen right about here. So an easy way to check this is turn off the water with the supplied shutoff valve, take this off, remove it, look down in there with a flashlight. You may find there's some particles in there obstructing the flow of water. Go ahead and clean those out with a Q-tip or a pencil or something in there to get it cleaned out, reconnect it, turn it back on, and I bet you'll be flowing free in no time. Another possible leak cause is actually a poor seal between the toilet pedestal and the floor of the camper. What we would have to do is, just like with your regular toilet at home, it has two bolts, one on each side, very easily accessible, and you would remove the nuts off of that, and then you would be able to lift off and remove the toilet. It's not very heavy. What you're looking at that's a little different than a household toilet is that this gasket is actually a foam gasket. It is not your standard wax gasket that most people are familiar with, but it performs the same function. We want to make sure that this gasket's not damaged in any way. We want to make sure that there's not some piece of debris that's sticking here and keeping it from sealing. If this is in very good shape, this is probably not the cause of the leak, but it's very easy to check. Also, if this does need to be replaced, obviously it's very easily removable. This ring is available on the internet as well as your local dealership or service center. When you're reinstalling this toilet, we want to make sure it's nice and firmly seated and centered in the location that you want. You want to make sure it's angled the right way you want it, and then you will tighten down these bolts. Again, just like at a household toilet, you want to tighten them down, but you don't want to wrench these things down too tight because you will end up cracking the plastic. Get them nice and snug and get them an extra maybe quarter turn and just to make sure that the toilet's nice and secure and not moving around, because we don't want that to leak. So here we are standing at the business end of the toilet. Not everybody's favorite viewpoint, but we've all seen it. In the situation here, this is the ball valve, and this is the ball valve seal. If you're getting a situation where water is not staying in the bowl, that water is leaking through, and you come back in a little bit later and it's dry like this, we may have a situation where the ball valve is leaking against the seal. This is not a catastrophic problem. You can actually come in here, this toilet is clean, we recommend you clean it first, and you can make sure that there's nothing around this ball valve that is keeping the seal and the ball valve to not make a good tight seal. This is a replaceable item without having to pull the toilet if you do need to. Another situation that Dometic often asks us to do is, if we are experiencing a leaking situation here, is that they want you to pour warm or hot water in here and let it soften this rubber and let it recontour to the curvature of the ball seal in there, thus potentially saving it from having to be replaced unnecessarily. Another situation is that it's possible that the ball valve itself has come dislodged and is sealing over here but not over here. That's a possibility. There is actually a whole write-up on how to do this directly from Dometic. There's a step-by-step procedure that we can link to. It's important that this seal stays lubricated and moist throughout its life. So, for example, during a winterization process, you want to make sure that there's some antifreeze sitting in this bowl, and that's what there was before we got here. That's why you see a little bit of pink fluid, because that will keep this seal moist and allow it to have a better chance of sealing when put into use in the field. So make sure you keep that wet throughout your storage period. Worthy of note in here is we also get calls on, hey, I flushed my toilet and I let go of the foot valve, and water continues to run out of these holes for a period of time. That's normal. Obviously, we don't want it to continue on for many, many minutes, but this will flow for a few seconds afterwards as water is drained from the porcelain into the bowl. We just want to make sure that that does come to a stop. It doesn't have to stop instantaneously. It will take a little time for it to drain out of the bowl, out of the porcelain itself and into the bowl. So right here is a picture of the ID tag located on the back of the Dometic 310 toilet. Anytime there's going to be a service event involved with Dometic, they're going to want to see a photograph of this. And the easiest way to do that is to use your cell phone and snap a picture behind the toilet. They want to be able to read the model and the serial number. This doesn't have to be beautiful. It just has to convey the information. Though most of our floor plans use the Dometic 310 or similar style toilet, there are a select few floor plans that do incorporate the use of a Macerator toilet. Now, at face value, they look very, very similar. And they are in some ways, while they differ in others. The Macerator toilet actually has an electric motor and a pump built into it that breaks up solid matter and pumps it down an 1.5 inch pipe versus the standard 3-inch pipe that comes out of the base of a standard gravity flush toilet. This allows us more flexibility in the placement of that toilet on some select floor plans. But with this, the operation is slightly different. With the Dometic 7640 that we do use, there is no external control module. We get asked that a lot because other brands do have a control module and a touchpad somewhere. There's no need for it on this. It operates the same as the Dometic 310 toilet with the flush valve that's operated by your foot. No difference there. Let's take a look. So immediately, here at the business end of the toilet again, the immediate difference that you see between this toilet and the one we were talking about with the Dometic 310 is that there is no ball valve here. There is just a black funnel, for lack of a better word. This is normal, and this normally has water sitting in here. This coach is winterized, so it doesn't have a full load of water in here. But when you're wanting to flush it, you flush it in the same manner. You use the foot pedal in the same way. So you would depress this fully, and what that will do is that will run that pump. That pump will then chew up any solids, and it'll pump it down the pipe just like it would on any other drain type of event. Also, if you feel like you want to put more water in the Macerator toilet, you partially depress it again, just like you do with the Dometic 310. That's kind of standard across the industry. It allows you to put more water in the bowl, and it should stay there. One of the questions people have is, I'm not so sure if this is actually operating a valve. And you're actually right. It's not operating a valve. It's simply operating a switch. So there should be no leakage around this like you have the potential of when you have a Dometic 310 or other standard gravity flush toilet. So what we're looking at here is the backside of the Dometic 7640 Macerator toilet. And this is the drain line. After it leaves the pump, it pumps the effluent down this pipe and into the coach. We want to make sure that this is relatively vertical. It doesn't have to be perfect. This is a perfect example of something that's acceptable. And that this check valve here is an air admittance valve. We want to make sure that that is free of debris, nothing's resting on it, and we want to make sure that it's not leaking. We want to make sure that that is relatively high back here. When I say that, we want to make sure it's above the water level in the bowl. The purposes of that is it allows this to act as a trap, very similar to a P-trap underneath a sink. We want that to be the high point so that there's some water retained in the trap and not siphoned down. If this is too low, what can happen is the water passing by will continue to drain this trap, and you'll end up with water not staying in the bowl. That's something that we do run into, and it's something that we can easily ascertain by looking at the backside here. Another distinguishing difference between a gravity flush and a macerator toilet is the fact that the macerator toilet has a cover back here called the clamshell. It's simply removed by a screw or two on either side, and it comes off. And that allows you to see the actual workings of the toilet. There is an electric valve in there. There's some more plumbing in there. And there's some electrical connections that come from the camper and connect to the toilet. One of the biggest things is there's actually the ID tag for the toilet back here. That's important because anytime we have a warranty concern or service concern with Dometic, they're going to want a picture of that ID tag, which has the model and serial number on it. So if we're asking you to get a picture of the ID tag, please remove this clamshell and you'll find that label stuck behind there. Now that you're able to use the bathroom again and not worry about your toilet, hopefully we're able to help you here. Please join us on our Facebook group. Feel free to shoot an email into service@alliancerv.com for any further questions. Also search us out on all of our social media platforms by searching @AllianceRV. Safe travels and hope to see you by the campfire.